take a listen to his ridiculous voice acting. I can't tell what he's supposed to be with his ridiculous bow tie and the name Joe Dallas in a French accent, but I think the serious expression on his face as he boxing glove punches that console only makes the whole thing more ridiculous. Anyway, Fubuki activates panty mode, which apparently makes her a top-class gymnast or something, and we've already lost any semblance of reality as she floats in midair while slamming the console with electric force or something. Her opponent is immediately distracted by this. And then he explodes. Because of course he explodes. But how did she get these powers? It's time for some panty backstory. One day, a very young Fubuki was alone in the park and very sad about her dead Tamagotchi thing or whatever. Then a giant, creepy man showed up, stifled her crying, wiped away her tears, and handed her some underwear. I saw some of you out there in the audience reaching for your phone almost involuntarily. That makes perfect sense, and good on you for that, because that was really creepy. But what makes it even worse is his voice. Let me go find this here. Yeah, okay, we're just going to cut him off there. It's so creepy. With that out of the way, we're back to regular horrible creepiness with this guy, who shows up to deliver some antagonistic lines to the heroes.
Anyway, Fubuki, you won't stand a chance against the world or even compare with the other Japanese gamers at the rate you're going. Stand a chance, stand a chance.
At least he's enjoying hamming it up. After that, he just kind of wanders off to the crowd. And so now we know what we need for the show, right? We got a gaming tournament, these passion powers, a bunch of creepy older men watching her every move. The thing's only 4 episodes long, so surely that's enough to fill the whole show, right? Wrong. Because of course there's a giant evil organization devoted to somehow stopping her from winning any gaming tournament, full of evil goons. So they're starting to move in the background. But meanwhile, in the foreground, we're going back to what's really important. Baseball? Really, show? You only have 4 episodes to tell your epic video game tournament story and you're going to waste time on baseball? I mean, I guess it introduces the new challenger rival character, who I'm going to call Dick Doug from now on. And, you know, I should probably stop caring about the show's take on reality. In any event, this guy comes back again. He's got his new shtick, which is hiding inside a piece of Jimakuden with his camera. Totally not creepy. And we're on to the next tournament, where we're fighting on top of the dive for some reason. But then the bad guys show up, capture everybody. Dick Doug reveals herself to be named Evil Dick Doug. And the organization, rather than just taking over with their, superior numbers, says, why don't we have a gaming tournament, even though we were both already entered in it and we're destined to fight anyway? Okay, sure. And they're off, playing Fantasy Zone against each other. So of course, it's time once again for some panty powers. This is an actual spoken line by Dick Doug. But then she reveals her secret powers. She has her own. Now, I wish I could say that this is the most ridiculous thing to happen in the show, but I would be lying to you. And we're going to get there, so don't worry. Anyway, evil's too strong, and the video game console explodes again. They might want to have that looked at, honestly. Fubuki basically just shrugs it off, declares her with them her rivals, and the bad guys just kind of let everyone go and float away for some reason. Leaving her alone to realize that world peace depends on... Yeah, okay, sure it does. And one last parting shot from episode 1. Thanks, episode 1. We move on to episode 2. Now, this is... What? No, this is episode 1. So now, this is really about setting up stuff for later episodes, but there's a lot of nonsense going on. Like, for instance, Mr. Mystery shows up by crashing through the window of her house. Spouts off a bunch of stuff, which translates to, you probably need to train up for this. Is incredibly creepy for a while. And then with one last creepy smile, he jumps back out through a different window. At least he's enjoying himself. a bit, just to kind of hang out outside her house. His box. That's pretty creepy, Senpai. That's pretty creepy. Anyway, we gotta get the training going. And a whole bunch more creepiness. Mr. Mystery shows up to hand her another pair of superpowered panties. I'm not really sure where he was keeping those exactly, but they're there. Great, and with that, we're ready for round 2 against Dig Dug, where things almost immediately get completely out of hand as some kind of giant waterspout tornado picks up the gaming consoles and they fly around. Now, I agree with you, Slaughter. Who is even coming up with this stuff? Oh yeah, right. I guess everything you make can't be a hit. But in any event, the two of them realize that gaming is fun. Truly something no one has ever realized before, and they become the best of friends. So we're on to episode 3, where we're really starting to run out of ideas. If they have some kind of catcher game to get DNA out of an ancient bee or whatever, for a plot stupider than any plot ever made before. We'll get to that in a bit. Because first, it's the final round of the tournament, which of course is being held at Mount Fuji. As a side note for this episode, Dig Dug and Hana are going to inexplicably spend the rest of the episode in stupid costumes. As a second side note, Senpai will spend the rest of this episode being incredibly creepy. Let's go visit him in Creeper Corner. Thank you, Senpai. Thank you. This has been Creeper Corner. Look forward to our next installment. Anyway, we get back to the tournament. A whole bunch of losers have showed up from around the world to fight. But Fubuki basically defeats them easily until, in some kind of ridiculous quasi-Jurassic Park knockoff, what is... Oh! Okay then. I don't think I saw that coming. Now, I was going to call BS on the existence of a Velociraptor here, but Senpai comes along to carefully explain why it totally makes sense. You can maintain your suspension of disbelief. Anyway, the dinosaur signals that it is on. Even the announcer guy is totally in on it. Let's take a listen.
This is apparently in canon with dinosaur cows.
This is so amazing. Well, now it's obviously legit as the ref shows up out of nowhere to let her know this is a real match. Yeah, I gotta say, I gotta hand it to that guy. There's no way he's getting paid enough for this job. Anyway, the battle between the two of them is on. Just another, regular old tournament fight like you see here, before he unleashes his secret move. Now, everything up till now has clearly been fair and above board, but this is obviously cheating. Fubuki fortunately has the answer, and that answer is anger. Once she calls forth her anger, she pretty much just starts throwing fire everywhere, and the dinosaur starts to lose, which leads to what I have to call the unintentional comedy moment of the year. You really need to step back and realize that this is a cloned Velociraptor playing a video game tournament cage match at Mount Fuji for a secret evil organization, and he thinks things have gotten out of hand. Fortunately, out of nowhere, Mr. Mystery shows up with some awesome announcement. Oh yes, he's back. Are we on to the final battle? Mr. Mystery unleashes some ridiculous-sounding special attacks as he hams it up. Oh yes, he starts punching that video game console like there's no tomorrow. But then, before anything can really get going, the big bad shows up. So, we're on to episode 4, a reunion that transcends time. So now the bad guy's here. He's going to take his revenge on gaming, and he owns all of the internets. So, just shut up. Anyway, let's get some backstory. This guy here with the mustache shows up and tells us that they used to be forming an awesome gaming company together. Things were going great. Their company name was KOGC, which we'll come back to in a minute. And, oh no, the kids at the arcade were getting violent with each other and acting out his video games. So he comes in and totally overreacts, breaks that screen, and the show takes this really sudden, jarring tone shift, trying to have a commentary on violence in video games out of nowhere. Now, as some of you may know, violence in video games is kind of a big issue. An ongoing debate, a lot of nuance, fierce supporters on both sides, but surely, a show as critically acclaimed and well thought out as our key theme of Fubuki will treat this subject with both even-handedness and the care it deserves. Right? Of course not. They walk outside and it turns out there's a war on. The UN is firing missiles at some third world country, but their missiles are powered by the CPU their company developed. Oh no. Yeah, I'm not really sure if that counts as using games as a tool for murder, but whatever. We gotta get as heavy-handed as possible as this guy decides to go out to the battlefield and stop things personally. I take it back, actually. This might be more heavy-handed. But anyway, things get dark really fast as there's like orphans around and he realizes there's nothing he can do to save them and there's this missile showing up. And for once I said, show, you might not be totally ridiculous here. Look at this guy having this realization. And then he threw off his shirt and grabbed that missile with his bare hands. Way to go, show. That's the show I was worried for a minute there, but no, good backstory. We're back to the present. Awesome. So this guy's going to shut everything down. He's going to take his revenge on gaming itself by building his own video game, putting people into it, making them play it. So how are these guys going to win? Is it going to be their gaming ability? Is it going to be this guy's almost unreal ability to be creepy? Will it involve literally anything at all we learned from this villain's copious backstory, which took up half of this episode? No, it will not. Why would you do any of that when you could have an enormously long, haul attack sequence? Just keeps going. Going. And going. But even after all that, the villain's like, whatever. So what are we going to do? How are we going to beat this guy? Well, friends. Friends are the answer. We're going to unite through gaming and take this guy down by gaming harder than him. And it's true. He's like, yeah, that worked, guys. You win. I'm just going to give up now. And then this happens. In case you somehow forgot what the show is about. And we cut to credits. Oh, wait, I hear you asking. What about the ongoing murder of civilians with those game-powered missiles? What about these kids who don't really have access to the Friendship Gaming Network? What about violence and pity? No, this is all we have. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention the existence of a bonus episode for Arcade Gamer Fubuki. However, it's pretty much just Sam Peta trying to videotape and remember the cast at the beach, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about it. In short, here's what the show wants you to remember. Listen closely. But what I want you to take away from the show is the following.
Does that seem excessive to anyone else? What a waste of resources.
Really, a waste of resources indeed. Thank you, everyone.
To an engineering Polytechnic school, and you can figure out every year and at least one day next year.
Can everyone hear me in the back? Yeah. All right. Today I want to talk to you about a show called Utawarerumono. Now, for a long time, the only thing I knew about this show is that it was a guy with a mask and it had a really long name.
I later learned that it was based on an H game, which made me a little wary, but even though there are a lot of terrible anime based on H games, which my colleagues have cataloged extensively, I still believe it is possible to make a good anime out of an H game. And when I learned that the game that Utawarerumono is based on tactical RPG elements, I was in. I was like, shoot, I love tactical RPGs. Final Fantasy Tactics is like my favorite game. If this show turns out to be anywhere near as interesting as Final Fantasy Tactics, I'll give it a shot. And it's got Kimono Mini. And I'm down with that. But it was all a trap. Utawarerumono draws you in with promises of awesome, but it balances the entire thing out by being totally unable to handle a lot of its plot points and prevents itself from being taken seriously. Now, there's a lot going on in here, so to make sure that you can appreciate the nonsense that happens later on, we have to start at the top. So, the protagonist wakes up in the physician's house in a sort of low-level fantasy world, and after an earthquake has apparently rendered him an amnesiac. Now, the owner of the house is the renowned apothecary Tuskuru, who lives with her two granddaughters, Eludu and Orudu. Now, they live in a village called Yamiura, of which Tuskuru is the elder, which, for reasons, is attacked by the surrounding forest's guardian spirit, Mutikapa, which takes the form of a giant white tiger. Now, when the attacks continue after the villagers make attempt to appease the beast, the protagonist steps in to protect them by formulating a plan to slay it. After the deed is done, the younger sister returns from a venture to parts unknown with a cub, which she has named Mukuru. And when asked about the origin of this creature, her only response is, because I promised. Now, this is the first fumble, as it raises a wide variety of fascinating questions about Aruru and the tigers and the world in general, and it never answers any of them or brings this up ever again. Well, I haven't played the game. They released a TV show that should be internally consistent. Now, Mukuru remains wholly unique throughout the rest of the show. Now, the other interesting thing that happens here is that Aruru, who has been very evasive of the protagonist due in part to his wearing of her deceased father's clothes, accepts him into her family when he defends her decision to raise the beast, even going so far as to call him father. And Tuskuru follows suit, bestowing upon him the name of her son, Hokoro. This catches Eludu off guard, and serves as one of the primary methods to extend and convolute the budding romance plot, which was already kind of evident. And to Utawarerumono's credit, the plot does not devolve into harem nonsense, and the relationship between these two is the core of most of the show's best moments. I was like, yeah, this is good stuff, I like it. But it also just kept going in places that I didn't like this character. Now, when the protagonist follows Tuskuru on a house call, we meet this guy, who is the brash and impulsive apparent leader of a group of dissatisfied bandits who perform periodic raids against the regional government, which is headed by this guy. Hang on, I think I have a better shot of him. Wait, hang on. One more. All right. Now, this guy is as fat as all get out, and he's equally irritating to listen to as he is to look at, as he's a pompous ass who ends all of his sentences with the inexplicable particle nyamo. He doesn't care about his subjects. He's probably some kind of sadist. This mustache-twirlingly evil sack of crap doesn't even last an entire episode before Hokoro smites him as part of an uprising, triggered by a scuffle that resulted in Tuskuru's death and tangentially Oboro getting himself captured. But by the end of it, I was already desperate for a new, better villain to be revealed. And who else would it be but this guy's older brother, the Emperor? Episode 5 hasn't even rolled its opening credits yet, and I'm about ready to throw up my hands and walk out. This is ridiculous. He's got the same decadent corpulence, the same annoying speech particle, even less concern for his citizens, and way dumber hair. Mercifully, the ensuing rebellion arc is less focused on this waste of space than it is on the Oscar winner for Best Supporting Actor, Samurai General of the Imperial Forces, Benawi. Now, this guy is friggin' awesome. And to demonstrate this, he has an exchange early on with Hokoro in which he attempts to gauge the demeanor of this new threat to order in the realm. He asks Hokoro if he believes that continuing this rebellion is the right thing to do. And after Oboro shoots his mouth off, Hokoro responds with the true character of a man who will do anything to protect his adopted family and makes exactly zero bones about the consequences of doing so. And this, yeah, like, this is the good stuff. This is what I'm in for. High drama. But, did you see the size of that tiger a second ago? Mukuru grows to this size over the course of like 3 episodes, over which it's really difficult to judge the passage of time. And one of the best examples of gravitas-killing nonsense in this show is related to this, is when Eladu tries to convince the creature not to eat all of the war rations, Mukuru goes for the jugs. And after a brief scene of Eladu getting molested by a tiger, Mukuru slinks back to Aradu, who determines that he feels sorry for Eladu. I don't even know how to interpret the amount of Japan that just happened. Like, none of the questions that this raises are good questions. Just, God, let's move on. All right. So we go through the whole rebellion arc. Benowi is awesomely standing in opposition to the Emperor's obviously self-destructive draconian tactics. And when the rebellion finally manages to rise to the Imperial Palace, Benowi takes it upon himself to personally rid the world of his hideous employer. And I was like, yeah, this is the good stuff. This is what I'm in for. So Hokoro assumes the new role of Emperor, names the country after Tsukaru, and then we get a visit from the Onkami Yamukai. Which is another big word. They're a small society of winged people who live somewhere and act as international peacekeepers. It's all right. Inspections go well. This Princess Uratori here has a couple of good scenes with Eladu, but things start getting weird when her little sister Kamyu shows up in Hokoro's room. I mean, it's okay. Kamyu isn't a threat. She's just a kid. And as a kid, she recognizes Aradu as one of her own and seeks to befriend her. The problem is that Aradu is an antisocial little kitten, so direct attempts fail. But after a rocky start, and following Hokoro's suggestion to bond over a gift of hand-picked honeycomb, Kamyu wins over her target. And it... God! Why are there bees in there? You're not actually gonna eat any of that, are you? Why are there bees in there? So the Wiggly people head home to get their paperwork in order or whatever, and the next thing you know, a bunch of dudes show up and basically annex the country. So after Oboro shoots his mouth off, again, Hokoro accedes to their claim, and it's hard to blame the guy, considering. And so what does this Emperor Nue want to do? Well, he invades anyway. Because the point of the declaration was to provoke Hokoro, and it didn't work. So by drawing the enemy in and employing some forbidden chemistry, Hokoro puts a stop to that invasion by hamstringing the enemy army. And this is kind of out of nowhere, but having some mysterious alchemical knowledge is part of his character. Yeah, I dig it. Now, who, though, should emerge from this flaming supply depot but the enemy emperor himself, Nue? Now, there's 2 reasons that I can't take this guy seriously. The first is audio. And the second one comes up a little later. But for now, after crossing blades with Hokoro, Nue slinks back into the flaming castle and returns to Shikara Pechim to plot something appropriately nefarious. Meanwhile, things continue to get weird. So, this slave ship capsizes in some body of water or other, which is evidently really close to the capital, because an expedition goes over there and finds a collapsing woman who evidently slaughtered like a dozen armed men with her bare hands, and they have enough time to put her in a cell under the palace before she wakes up. And when she does, she just knocks out the guards and struts up to the assembled command staff to ask, what the heck? Here's the thing. I wanted to like this character. Karuna. After all, she's got a lot going for her. She's a nice, strong, assertive female character. But it doesn't take long for things to go horribly wrong. And it starts here. Immediately after Edodo agrees to bring Kaneda a little sake, we get this. Boom. Now, I don't care that she's a heavy drinker, especially if she can hold her alcohol, but this gag was executed without the proper setup. There's no reason given for all of that to have gotten in there without Edodo's knowledge. Like, she doesn't give Kaneda the run of the stash or hand off the task to a servant who is taken advantage of. Nothing. We're just left to infer that something humorous happened. Now, the writers do set something else up. Now, the oncoming Yamukai return shortly after this, and Kaneda and Uratori happen to catch each other's eyes, and are obviously shocked to see each other there. The next time we see them, they're out boozing on the veranda in a companionable silence. And after this, Kaneda declares her intent to join the army, following up the declaration with a knowing glance to Uratori, who is again shocked by this development, even though they had plenty of time to talk about this. And there is never an explanation given for what is going on here, or how they knew each other, or anything. And unlike the sake bit, which was sloppy but quick, you have to watch the entire rest of the show to find out that these jerks hung you out to dry in episode 10. Shortly after this, it's 26 shortly after this is an exhibition match in which Kaneda breaks several swords. So we cut to the palace after a totally unspecified time skip, where we find that Hokoro has used his black market contact to have a sword forged and imported in secret that will never break aboard ship. Now, Captain Beefsteak over here tries his hand at lifting it. You can already kind of see where this is going. Now, for me, though, what hit me wasn't the fact that she picks that thing up over her head one-handed with no discernible muscle tone, but that when she does so, her feet do not immediately embed themselves in the floor. At that point, my engineer's suspension of disbelief was shattered, and I was pretty much done. She proceeds to annihilate a boulder as a test swing. Just, let me draw out a parallel to Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics is a great game, but it's also notorious for having one of the most game-breakingly powerful characters in its genre. His name is Sidolphus Thunder God Sid Orlando, and he is a wrecking ball. But this is justified in the game's lore. He's been a renowned war hero since the player character was born, and you see a lot of cutscenes with him to give you a feel for who he is before he joins the party, which happens halfway into the 4th quarter. So you've had to do a lot of work before you get to ride his coattails to victory. In contrast, Kaneda just falls off of a boat. It's less than halfway into the show, and already we're basically watching Dynasty Warriors. I mean, I understand what plot armor is, but she's just so damn smug about that. Let's move on. So anyway, the next thing you know, the country is being invaded by a mysterious force, leaving devastation in its wake and gunning for the capital. When they end up boxed in the central courtyard, what they ended up doing, instead of making any attempt to retreat, is charge to their deaths to make a point about how much they hate Hokoro, without giving any kind of identification or actual rationale. Now, one slain investigative party later, we've identified the culprits and ride out to meet them on the field of battle. But when we reach enemy territory, we realize that we have two problems. One is that the entire enemy army is mounted on Waptars, making them substantially more maneuverable and dangerous. The other is that amongst the enemy ranks is a woman named Toka, who is significant in that she comes from the Evan Kuruga tribe, which is a small group of people who have a wide reputation for their strict code of honor and their preternatural skills with the blade. But we could just take Kaneda in front of her. We'll be fine. The real intrigue here is that the king of Kuchikesha, Orika Khan, identifies our amnesiac protagonist as Rakshine, a traitor to Kuchikesha who murdered a lot of people, including the king's sister. He's ticked, but is forced to retreat from the might of Kaneda. And our own army goes home to lick their wounds and ruminate on what just happened. Now, the ensuing couple of episodes contain a lot of Hokoro considering the possibility that he committed serious atrocities that he can't remember, which makes for some pretty compelling television. But when Hokoro lures Orika Khan to a secluded spot, instead of asking any pointed questions like, if you know me so well, what's the deal with the mask? Why can't I take it off? And why don't I have fuzzy ears? He just asks the guy to confirm and deny what he already said. And Orika Khan proceeds to provide exactly 0 new information before taking an arrow to the throat. Fired by none other than Anyway, and it was at this point that I ceased to have any idea what was going on. As is Toka. After all, the reason that Orikon declared war on Tuskuru was due to a very specific set of circumstances. Now let's see if Nui decides to tell us how he convinced Orikon that Hokoro was his brother-in-law who went crazy, killed a bunch of dudes, and escaped badly wounded into the woods. What? This isn't, oh cute, Kaneda suddenly has all the booze. This was like 3 episodes of serious business. And this hand wave is the only explanation that's offered. This is supposed to be a reveal. It doesn't answer any questions, and it begs several. Now, with the clues that are provided over the next couple of episodes, which typically involve very durable borderline zombie warriors, it is possible to imagine a scenario that is mostly plausible. I've spent days thinking about this, and I'm still not really satisfied with the best I can come up with. Look at all the logical leaps you have to make to do this. Anyway, Nui starts invading Tuskuru in earnest now, and Hokoro formulates a plan to strike Shikara Penjim's capital with a small force while the army is invading the border. This ultimately involves Kaneda getting us inside, Kaneda being left at the gate to deal with a squad of enemy special forces, and when the rest of the party is beset by 9 killable zombie warriors, Kaneda catching up to them and showing them how it's done. And then Hokoro and Nui get into a private duel, and you have to remember that Nui's actual motivation this whole time has been to get Hokoro to unleash the beast, and he finally gets what he asked for when Hokoro hulks out and rips him to shreds. Now what happens in the fire sets up more existential angst for Hokoro, which intensifies as he begins having visions in the second half, which provide hints to his true origin. This gets kind of weird, but it's not really poorly done, and I try not to begrudge a show as one core plot point. Smaller plot points, though, those are free game. So, Tuskuru's intelligence department brings in a report, which turns out to be from Kaneda's homeland. Seems the citizens over there have begun revolting against their brutal dictatorship, but are not faring well against the established army. When asked by Kaneda, Hokoro pledges to give humanitarian aid, but draws the line at getting his country into another war. And Kaneda accepts this. Now, when the aid that Hokoro can give doesn't seem to be enough, Kaneda concocts a cunning plan, and instead of trying any kind of negotiation or intimidation, just kidnaps Hokoro. And when Oratori discovers them, she just invites herself along. And every other female character in the palace stumbles upon them and does the same. It's played for laughs, but it's tragic. They don't know where they're going. It just seems like they know that Kaneda is doing something, and when Kaneda does something, she cannot be stopped. They go have adventures that relate to her backstory or whatever, but after this, I couldn't bring myself to care. Now, the weird thing about Uratori, though, is that as irritating as all of her scenes with Kaneda are, her scenes with Edodu continue to be good. There's one late in the show that ties into this part where Edodu has to make peace with a really dark decision that she had to make. There's good drama there, and I was like, yeah, this is what I wanted out of this show. But this is a flash in the pan compared to Kamu's excruciating arc. So, again, shortly after Nui's defeat, we get this scene where Kamu is shown to be unusually thirsty. And Uratori obviously knows what's up and doesn't want anyone else to worry about it. Flash forward a couple of episodes, and bam! Vampirism. And we never get to see how this happened, though. So, while it seems clear that Otodu is underreacting to some degree, we never really know exactly how big of a deal it was. Now, the hunt is on for Kamu, who Hokoro finds at this nearby lake, and she almost explains what's going on in a touching confession that she clearly wasn't herself during the attack, but we're no closer to learning what might trigger these episodes, and everyone just kinda reconciles, because they're friends. Now, you might have come away with this having learned that Kamu may occasionally manifest a thirst for blood, but this never happens again. Having been told this, you might think it's just another dropped plot hook like Kaneda and Uratori knowing each other, but it's even worse than that. Watch with me. So, the wiggly guy we saw working with Nui turns out to be the show's primary antagonist, and he summons the reincarnated spirit of Kamu's original ancestor, Mutsumi, to take over Kamu's body. It turns out that Mutsumi, the original Wiggly, was genetically engineered by an ancient civilization, and for no readily apparent reason has direct mental control over an orbital laser platform. Which makes even less sense blood connection to her ancestor foreshadowing is sabotaged by this clumsy vampire misdirection, but the real reason the writers included that scene soon becomes clear. Observe. During Mutsumi's fight with Hokoro, Otoru intercedes, and even Kamu's alter ego can't bring herself to harm her. The only reason that Kamu was revealed to be a vampire is to show Kamu herself that if she were a scourge upon the living and had even personally assaulted her BFF, Otoru would still be BFFs with her. Because friendship is the real magic. And this guy's second half arc is even worse. It's not even really an arc. So rewind back to after New A's defeat. There's this scene here involving Oboro sparring with Benoe, who's consistently wiped the floor with him. This scene exists to convince us that Oboro is undergoing some sort of character development, reining in his overly aggressive nature and being more observant and careful, in contrast to his impulsive acts across the first half. We're told he's getting better. We even see him sparring with Toka, who also kicks him around. But it's an illusion. If you pay close attention to how Oboro reacts to real stimuli in the second half, he's still chomping at the bit to get on the battlefield against mathematically superior opponents and suggesting blind counterattacks in the face of overwhelming odds. No strategic or tactical suggestions, just attack. The writers totally forget that they're trying to develop him. And it comes to a head near the end. Now, despite evidence to the contrary, we continue to be told that Oboro is somehow developing. And Hokoro shows up, comments on his unchanged character flaw, and takes him to a quiet spot where... What? Oh, sure. Don't give the most important administrative in the known world to the level-headed leader who's already been doing your job during your downtime. Give it to the boneheaded knuckle-dragger who's still pretty much the same numbskull that got you into this mess in the first place. Just... Yes.
Also known as Underwater Romano.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, this is going to be running a little bit long, but we are the same people in this same room after this, so hopefully that won't be a problem for you. So, here's an anime that some of you may have had the unfortunate chance to see back in the day when the Sci-Fi Channel spelled its name correctly and actually showed anime, and that is Virus Buster Serge. The opening sequence in every episode throws a lot of random stuff at you, setting the tone for the rest of the show as a whole. Things about an incubator in Neo Hong Kong, something called an annihilator. You know what, it's all very confusing. But eventually it's made clear that there's something called the virus that's attacking the Earth from space. Fighting the virus is a team of anime stereotypes dressed in Sentai-style power armor called variable gears. And at the beginning, they mostly fight these biomechanical 90s anime monsters. But enough about the setup. Let's get into why this show is terrible. First off, the art. Well, the art isn't good. For a series of only 12 episodes, it's really cheaply made. This dramatic running animation looks awful. And the animators copy and flip close-ups just to avoid having to redraw them. It seems like they can't even keep the colors consistent. There's one episode that's completely washed out like this. And look at these close-ups. The two at the top are supposed to be the same guy. Those two from the bottom, those look like the same girl, but they might as well be from totally different shows. Not only is the art bad, but look at the anatomy here. I don't need to say anything more. Your reaction is enough, thank you. Everyone's limbs and torsos are all elongated and out of joint. You've got more subtle limbs like this. Yeah. Something's just wrong here. Look at that. Drink it in. You might say, oh, it's stylized. What's your problem? You watch stylized shows. Well, it's the inconsistency that makes it awful. This is supposed to be that same character. Putting aside the giant mannish shoulders, they look nothing alike. The show has as many animation directors as it has episodes. And it feels suit diagrams pose too. Another place the show drops the ball is in writing. The show drowns you in technobabble in place of actual story or dialogue. Things about EX drivers or dimension compression missiles. They get brought up and then overused or explained. Or, wait a minute, you have time compression weaponry? Why are we using those to fight the virus right now? Brain mapping plans and something called the Atomic Asian Pacific. Oh, jeez, it's getting out of hand. These shots are all from the same episode, which by my estimation was 80% technobabble. It's all utter and total nonsense. That's what this is. But what about the jerks spewing this techno-jargon, seen here in all their poorly animated glory? Well, they're the strike team of STAND, an organization run by a sinister company called Zynel that fights the virus. The protagonist is Serge, an amnesiac bad boy, who we only know is the hero because he wears red and his name is in the title. He's a blank slate that spends most of his time spouting off lines like this. I dare you to find me a more anime-sounding line than this. We've got the token tough girl, Erica, who's kind of useless, but more on that later. You've got Mireille, the hacker support character, wearing her enormous mantle thing that probably weighs half as much as she does. You've got Joichiro, the loose cannon, who's supposed to be some sort of tough, no-holds-barred fighting kind of guy, but is mostly there to get beaten up. And Serge to tell us that Serge is the real head of the team for some reason. This guy is so one-note, he doesn't even get an episode devoted to him. And then there's Magus, who's here as eye candy for the ladies, but looks like someone else you might recognize. Is he anime Rob Halford? I guess he's not here for the ladies then. Knock it away, gentlemen. And then there's the leader of Stan, Raven, a man so brooding, so dark, so edgy, he friggin' weeps blood. Right. There's also a bunch of unfortunate side characters like this lady who talks for minutes on end about nothing in particular, and all of these other characters that appear in multiple episodes but serve no function besides padding out an already convoluted story. Let's dig into that story, shall we? How did these yahoos manage to ruin the premise of Power Armored ninjas fighting biomechanical monsters in a non-specific future? Well, we established right out of the gate that the heroes aren't very effective. This guy here is firing a piddling little handgun at a giant armor machine built to shrug off tank rounds. So you're like shooting spitballs at a semi-truck. And I can't recall more than one instance where their pea shooters ever took down a significant foe. You may have also noticed their suits have a small weak point. Anyone guess where that is? Yeah, the face. Anyone overlooked that in design docs? Well, one day while Stan is fighting one of those virus-infected robots, Serge jumps in to try and kill Raven for no reason that's adequately explained. So Raven responds, wait, what? I'm flattered, but what the hell, guy? Serge looks about as confused as I am, but moments later, he has donned the Red Ranger armor and kicked the crap out of the enemy machine with no training or explanation of its use whatsoever. And he still did try to assassinate a guy, though, so Raven offers him the chance to join the team and avoid a prison sentence. Reasonable enough. But again, next episode, no training, no explanation, no prep work, no nothing. He is on the team and trying to kill a virus in an underwater research lab. Bam, cut to the next episode, and here's a virus that's attacking women in their sleep. Bam, this inexplicably leads to the virus trying to... I don't know what it's trying to do. Merge with Serge or something. I have no idea what's going on here either. I'm confused. This is 6 episodes in. Is anyone else confused? We're halfway into the series and no one's explained what the virus is, what caused it to attack Earth, nothing. So it sounds like we're finally about to get an explanation, thank God. So what is this all about? What? That cut happened exactly as I showed you. There was nothing in between those two frames. You're not going to tell us, you're just going to get to the founding of Stan. What was the point? The explanation amounts to a bunch of stuff happened for reasons. There you go. Story of 2 show. After that non-explanation, we're introduced to someone who's actually been talking to the virus. Maybe he's the show's actual villain. He's got a cool nickname, too. Seriously? No one is going to point out how dumb that sounds? No, they're going to say it in hushed whispers like he's some kind of cybernetic Sauron. In English, mind you, every time. It's undermined somewhat by the fact that the guy looks like this. A guy with robot arms and a cyber monocle? I'll believe that's scary. But you throw a pink and black overcoat onto him and he stops being scary right quick. He and Serge fight for a little while, and Serge fails in his protagonist tests, Brain Lizard escapes, and this leaves Erica and Mirai here to try and stop the lizard from hacking into Stan's main computer. This somehow means that Mirai has to watch a bunch of her old memories and get a bunch of symbolism thrown at us, and then steals things straight out of Evangelion. And that flagrant copy of another better show scares the virus off. Which means Brain Lizard finally has to get serious. You can tell by his lack of pink overcoats. And he takes some hostages, locking them inside of Stan's armored transport vehicle with him. The team needs to use EMP rifles in order to destroy Brain Lizard's cyber implants. You know what those would have been really handy using against? That giant robot from the first episode. Anyway, 3 people need to shoot him simultaneously because this wasn't complicated enough. And since in addition to being hackers and power-armored ninjas, everyone's also an expert marksman, they managed to nail Brain Lizard and take him down. So, with the villain beaten, Erica here demands that he tell her who Serge is, because this leads to the show's big reveal. That Brain Lizard here says that Serge is really a man we've never heard of, called Dr. Milan Train. Or rather, a clone of the good doctor. Serge is kind of upset by this, as one might imagine, but we got no time to mull over that. Zynel has to be evil. So I guess that Stan has gone over budget on keeping the world from being destroyed. It doesn't come up very often, but you can tell that the Zynel company is evil because of the massive TV globe covered in Spartan capacitors they use as a headquarters. Those of you who played Xenogears might recognize this a little bit faster. But we have to cut back to Stan because their main computer has been infected by the virus. Something happens with alarming frequency. The virus appears as some sort of weird angel lady, and Raven takes the opportunity here to ask what this is all about. Guess he was pissed about not getting an explanation before what? Either. But instead of that explanation, we get something about impulses. Obfuscation does not equal depth, you slack-jawed writing hacks. Cut back to the team telling Serge that only he and his variable gear, the Halcyon Scarlet, which, like his real name, was never mentioned before this episode, can use something else we've never heard of called Transcendence Mode to beat the virus. This causes Light to shoot out of his nipples whenever he poses the virus. And reminds me of an album cover from a certain band. You have no idea how much I would have preferred if Virus Mr. Serge had actually been an anime homage to Judas Priest, but alas, it was not to be. Instead, the shock of seeing the MacGuffin in front of her distracts the virus lady, giving Raven time to don his own variable gear, the aptly named Halcyon Black, also introduced for the very first time in this episode, and he and Serge defeat the virus. A beam of light shoots into the sky, the virus is dead, we have been wrapping this up, I can smell credits in the distance. But no, Zynel still has to be evil and take over Stan's headquarters for no good reason, while Serge is lying half dead at the bottom of a hole following his fight with the virus, while getting yelled at by mental images of people he knows, and another bit seemingly borrowed from Evangelion. The show finally gets around to explaining that the virus came from an old research satellite, and it can basically do anything it wants because it's actually nanomachines, or as I like to call it, sci-fi space magic. We also reveal that Serge was cloned by Raven because only he has the genetic capacity to use the Halcyon Scarlet's power and defeat the virus. I'm not sure why. Raven was able to make 4 or 5 other variable gear suits that don't require special clones to use, so I guess a side effect of the virus is lacking common sense. Finally, with the team reunited, and Zynel tries to stop them with a never-before-seen space battleship, and people talk at each other for a full half of an episode without accomplishing anything. Entire new concepts and organizations are brought up and discussed, only to never be mentioned again. And finally, with all the pointless jawing done, Serge and company try to head into space to destroy the virus and kill the satellite that harbors it. But wait, something is stopping them. It couldn't be. Yeah, it's Raven, here to fight Serge, because the writers just now remembered that they had set up this rivalry 11 episodes ago. Serge puts on a serious face and is ready for a fight we've been promised since episode 1, but despite being the hero, he still kind of sucks at his job. Raven continues to mock him with standard issue anime villain lines for the whole fight. And wait, what's this? Serge is weeping blood too. He's become edgier than Raven. Remember, this is the 90s. Edginess equals victory. And Raven is out of the way. Serge and company fly into space to confront the virus. Serge uses his glowy Jesus powers to remove the shield from the satellite. And we learn that the variable gear suits Stan uses were originally meant to talk to the virus. Sure, because when I think recent discourse, I immediately think power armor. We go into flashback and learn that the guy that Serge was cloned from was trying to use nanomachines to talk to God or something like that. But that's not tying up the plot. We're not here for that. What's really important, according to this guy, is that Serge is alive. What? But how does that... Who wrote this garbage? What? We just remembered we're an action show now. A possessed variable year comes out of absolutely nowhere. And Serge uses his ultimate attack to solve the problem in the only way he knows how, to punch it with giant explosions. So the virus is destroyed, for real. Humanity is saved. You found that all a bit jarring, I might assume, and I tried to make a chart to keep track of all the plot threads. A show with only 12 episodes shouldn't be too complex. Obviously, the virus being a big deal keeps on going, but then they have all these other threads that go nowhere. Surge's revenge on Raven, Zinal being evil. Those things get dropped for the entire middle section of the show. There's an entire romance subplot between Serge and Erica that is so tacked on, I didn't even need to mention it. All of these other subplots get cut off and get killed. The woman-killing virus, Serge being a clone, Brain Lizard being a dude. All get introduced and dropped after a couple of episodes, like nobody bothered to plan out the entire middle arc of the entire show. So the show is straight up bad. But there's something worse in it. The terrible art, the bloated story, the techno-babble, and that, my friends, is misogyny. Now, guys in the room, if you're like me,
So watch Virus Buster Serge and teach those uppity women their place. Or don't watch Virus Buster Serge and be a better person. Thank you.
squad shows up. By that I mean Tsubasa, who's still really angsty. They take Hibiki, put her in the magic elevator, take her to the Crayon factory. Which happens to be led up by Willy Wonka. And it turns out that there's a secret organization right under her all-girls school, which knows all about Symphogear and all this stuff. It's led by Willy Wonka, Sakurai Ryoko, who I hate with a fiery passion. Like straight up hate with a fiery passion. Anyway, we need some exposition, because we've talked an awful lot about Symphogear, but what exactly is Symphogear? Well, it comes from these relic things, there's research done about it, it's activated by specific amplitudes, you could have just said songs. And bam, you get you some Symphogear, like song-powered armor. It's gonna be cool. Now, last I checked, Hibiki didn't have one of these relic things you were talking about, but that's okay, because having stolen Hibiki's x-rays from the hospital, Willy Wonka and co. have discovered that, you see, she's got fragments of Gungnir, Kanade's suit, embedded in her, because Kanade sort of exploded when she died. Like, that's totally a thing. Anyway, Tsubasa doesn't deal with this well. She kind of has a mental breakdown. And here we get some... yeah, good job, Kanade. Anyway, we get some important exposition. Listen to this. Mankind can't touch the noise. Straight up can't touch the noise. Only the Symphogear users can. So these ladies are the only ones that should be able to touch the noise. They're humanity's greatest hope. Anywho, we've got to form a magical girl team. Damn it, I was promised a magical girl team.
Thanks, bro.
And this is going about as well as you expected, because, you know, Hibiki's trying. And Tsubasa's not having it. In fact, she's not having it so hard, she's going to kick Hibiki in the face. Laugh harder, she's going to sword kick her in the face. This is going to be so awesome. This is going to be so off the crack. No! He straight up blocks her sword foot with his fist! With his fist! With his fist! I'll try and get over it. Anyway, our base is being attacked by things. Why is our base being attacked? Because we have Sacristi D. Whatever the crap that is. Anyway, you need body gain to activate. I'm not even playing around. Like, no. Nobody understands what's going on. Straight into nonsense. It didn't make any sense. The show tries to explain away some stuff by saying blah, 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 blah. Like, this is what I look like by the end. We're done. You're lying to me. All lies. Anyway, by the way, just for your perspective, the base is made out of pagan technology. It's the stronghold of mankind. That creeps me the hell out, right, Hibiki? Anywho, more about them attacks. This time it's attack on fashion. What the crap are you wearing? What the devil is that? What the devil is that? Of course, it's the Nahushin armor. That Tsubasa somehow knows all about. When the hell did that even get mentioned? The devil! You lied to me! Anyway, that's going in the nonsense patch right there. I don't even know what that is! Your outfit is so ugly! God, the show just zooms in on it a bunch of times. It's not like it wants me to think it looks cool or something. Anyway, Tsubasa thinks it's ugly too because she's gonna kill herself. She's actually about to sing her swan song, and hot damn, like that means she's gonna die. We're just like killing characters left, right, and center. Like she's just straight up gonna die. I'm sorry, Tsubasa. What? What do you mean she didn't disintegrate like Kanade did in episode 1? Lies and blasphemy! More lies and blasphemy. Anyway, we cut away from that immediately to a shot of Slutzella, completely naked, sitting in a chair, talking in what can only be described as Japan English of the finest variety. There's, oh god. Oh, double. Like, does she have that girl in the Nahushin armor tied up to in a bondage outfit, tied up to a thing that's electrocuting her? That's just sick and wrong and oh, and then she smiles about it! That's disgusting and awful! This is intro and gone to this. Like, beat the crap out of each other. Anyway, now that Chris's armor is, like, getting smashed, she's gonna use some super sweet attack with the Nahushin armor, yeah? No! There's nudity attack! She just straight up blows it right off her body and is like, it's she-ball! What the devil is a she-ball? What do you mean she's been a Symphogear user the whole time? What do you mean she's got death metal attacks? What? Where did that balcony even come from anyway? The villain shows up. I couldn't put the little apostrophe thing, but the villain shows up and her name is Fine. Seriously, where did that balcony even come from? They're in the park and she's all like, yeah, I'm here and I'm cutting ties with you, Chris. And Chris is like, no, something that doesn't make sense. Something that, and then they just part ways. Like straight up, Chris just wanders off and talks about stuff and helps some kids find their parents. Like that's it. That's our whole character arc for her. That was great, I suppose, or something and stuff. Okay, we need some analysis. Straight up. Like, what is even going on? These characters are completely uninteresting. What's going on? Like, the plot makes zero sense. It's time to get serious. It's time for some real exposition. It's time. No! It's not time to waste half an episode shopping, going to the movies, trying on clothing, eating ice cream. Oh, God, your face! You're just wasting this whole episode. While this was happening, like, I don't know, Sakura Ryoko's talking to herself, by herself about swan songs and the custodians' nonsense. Nonsense. Like, things are just getting out of hand. Anyway, we're here at the Badass Mansion where Fine hangs out. Chris is like reflecting on herself. Willy Wonka's here to teach her the ways of chocolate, and oh God! The whole place has been rigged to explode! They both might die! They both might... You gonna explain to me how you did that this time, bro? Alright, I guess you are. Anyway, Chris talks about some sort of philosophical stuff which might have gotten deep, except for the fact that there's just feels, and whammo, Magical Girl team assembled! And our team is assembled just in time for more dumb plot. Are you ready? Are you ready for Kadingir? A secret tower no one knows about, especially me, because it's never been mentioned? Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, the old girls' school is under attack by the holy crap, it's Slutzella in the Nahushin armor, which might I remind us, we blew up in a nudity attack several episodes ago. How did you reconstruct that thing? Alright, more importantly, Kadingir is the base. This entire time, the base under the school, the Crayola Crayon Factory, it is Kadingir. Tsubasa, where were you on that one? It is Kadingir. Also, Sakura Ryoko is the enemy. But who cares? The base is Kadingir. This whole damn time, it's been a secret tower, and oh gosh. Now it's time for Fine's epic backstory. She was a priestess. There's something about genetics and her hiding herself, and oh god, there's that German word again. And she awakens herself. Apparently Tsubasa accidentally awakened her in the doctor, and this has happened multiple times because stupid history repeats itself, and you wanted to meet God. So you built a giant tower to the heavens, which exploded because God got mad, and now everybody speaks different. What? You really full on merge some religion into this bad show. Like, what? Get ready. Get ready. How are we going to get everyone to speak the same language? We're going to blow up the effing moon. We're going to shoot the moon, kids. We're going to shoot the moon. We're going to blow up the moon because the base is a laser cannon. it shouldn't play nice when somebody's got a chain whip that can shoot the moon! She shoots the moon! And a giant-ass piece of it comes flying down to Earth to kill everybody! And then there's Space Death. Like, all the girls fly into space, sing their swan songs, and die. And die! That was really sad. Like, I'm really glad we stuck to our guns in the end, and everybody died. I'm really glad the noise was defeated. I'm really glad no one is suffering anymore. The whole show was pointless! Like, somewhere along the line, this is just what the show decided. This is what the writers decided. This is what we got! Look at this! Look at this! Like, I sure can't believe I watched this! Should have had me eat! Guys, just download the whole soundtrack because it is really good. Don't watch this show. You'll sit and wallow in regret. Just have a V8. It's great.